Good morning, welcome to Chap Off the Range. This is for the Remote Military March 2023. Supposed to be doing it with a bloke in the Jura, but unfortunately he's feeling a bit under the weather, so we'll wish him well, and you're stuck with me. So we're going to make a 25k wander around my neck of the woods, around a nice lake. But before we do anything, let's just hold back and enjoy a cup of tea first. So in terms of gear, we have the obligatory 10 kilos, which we have to carry from start to finish. Most of that is in the plate carrier. It's the easiest way to distribute weight around me, I find. The rest is in the rucksack. Consumables, like food, don't count. Reliable Hakes boots, and since she's still asleep, I'm stealing my wife's Go Faster sticks. Alright, we are off now. We're going to start off with a trek across town. Not much to say about that. This is what the profile of the walk is going to be. So we've got a steady rise into the hills, and then we follow a relatively stable path all the way along the valley. So we're following the edge of the lake, but in the forest, because there's a road along the side of the lake, and that's rather dull. And just because I had to fit in the 25k, I had to do a spike at the end, so I made myself life a little bit harder. Just before reaching the finishing line, I have to go back up into the hills and then down again to the finish line. So we're getting close. Now up there, right on the top, on the left, is the Harder Kulm, which is a nice viewpoint and restaurant. That's where I head up at least once a week. Sometimes I run, sometimes I use Nordic walking, but the good thing is if I do this 25 times within the season with collecting a stamp card, I get a free dinner at the end of it, so I'll do anything for a free dinner. Right, so there is a wonderful crest walk all the way along the summit, but technically it's still open, but at your own risk. But there's still snow and everything, and it is a very, very narrow crest walk, and yeah, you can fall off very easily. So we're not going to do that. That's we're going to wait till the nice season to do that. So we're basically going to head halfway up and go along until we hit Brienz, which is the ultimate destination. Perfect example of Bernese dialect. Coiffeurstübli could be coiffeur stübli. That is a hairdresser's. We'll come to the aptly named English Gardens. Lots of grand hotels around here. And hit the river, and then in we go. This is it, up into the hills. Lazy people, when it's open, will take the train. No, we don't do that. We're going to go and see if the marmots are awake. Sun's just rising over the hills. See if there's anyone about. There's one. Hey, big boy. Seems to be on it. There's one on the outcrop there too. Right. Our journey continues up. We go into the bridge, do a dog leg, and then we head over there to them misty hills. First troll bridge. Hope no one's at home. I'm safe. A bit of botany. What we have here is lily of the valley. Smells wonderful. The plant, however, is absolutely, completely and utterly poisonous. So very nice to have in a little vase of water at home, but wash your hands thoroughly afterwards. It's melt season. Places like this where the rocks weep. I wouldn't drink it, but it's good for wetting the back of the neck at least. So, heading towards the lake. Onwards, Mr. Frodo! Lunch. Alright, that was a refreshing start, quite slow. 3 kilometres in, little waterfall here, and onwards direction Rinkenberg. Here we have the typical Swiss footpath where the only safety measure is fish versichert go. Now, my comment about insurance is only partially in jest. So in terms of difficulty of trekking, you have these normal yellow signs, which is basically accessible for all. Wear sensible footwear, please, but no special skills. There's no guarantee that it's going to be flat or steep, it's just the expected skill. And then we have this one with red and white stripes. Now that means it is going to be hard going. You need proper footwear, and it's a good idea to have a well provisioned rucksack, but still no particular climbing gear, that kind of thing, not required. That is what there is mostly in this area once you get to a certain altitude, and once you get to the very top you have the white and blue striped signs, and that is also you don't need climbing gear, but you do need good stamina, good strength, all the provisions in your rucksack. You may get stuck up there, so that's what it is on the summit walk. On the crest there it's all white and blue, and up there they don't bother indicating distances anymore. You just have to look for the signs. They're usually painted on rocks or tree trunks. They're also not particularly maintained. You might get the forestry commission guy coming through at the beginning of the season and the end, but apart from that, unless there's been obviously some heavy weather that could cause landslides and things that they need to check, otherwise there's no special treatment of the way. So as most things in this country, it is important to be self-reliant and use common sense. So coming to a Feuerstelle, or fire pit. These are scattered all over the countryside. There's usually some firewood there for you to use, not always in the form of a little shelter like this, but it's obviously well frequented, and you'll have everything you need for a grill. This is just available to the public. Some of them have a little donation box for the maintenance, but yeah, this is open all year round. A little monastery down there, also no longer in use. I'll remind our dear viewers that this is also actually Lord of the Rings country. Tolkien took many a holiday here in Switzerland, particularly in Wallis, which is over the other side of those mountain ranges, which was the inspiration in particular for the crossing of Caradras the Red in the Aletsch glacier region, which is extremely pretty. It's on the other side of, well, it's in another valley which is actually far drier than this, so far more spectacular in terms of craggy mountain views. Caution, rocks might fall on head. Yeah, they might. Oh, this is an interesting construction. So, time to rest my weary feet. We're just over halfway. I only took 2 wrong turns. Pascal isn't with me, so I can't even blame it on the officer with the map. Things are going well. Going to air my feet, change my socks, have a snack, a Swiss Lembas, the Nusstorte, an alcohol-free beer, because why not? And since I'm sitting here, I'll also tell you the tale of the Bourbaki army. Now, this was originally planned for the walk we had planned in the Jura, in the Bloke's stomping ground, where all this takes place. But that's not to be, and it's a shame to waste the story since I did all the research. So we are on the 2nd of September 1870, where there is the Battle of Sedan. And the French unfortunately lose. They also lose 80,000 men in terms of killed, wounded, captured. Also Napoleon III is captured, and that is the fall of the Second Empire. However, France itself has not capitulated. For that, the Prussians would need to capture Paris, so they go and press on inland. Now, there is also the battles going on at Metz and Strasbourg, which also do not go well, unfortunately, which enables the Prussians to further reinforce the siege. Inside Paris is it's governed by the Défense Nationale, a sort of mishmash ad hoc government composed of whatever senior officials happen to be there. In terms of troops, it is also whoever managed to get in before the siege. So you had regular line infantry, you also had naval troops, naval crews taking off ships to man forts, that kind of thing. So it was a real mishmash of armed forces, volunteers and regulars. And outside of Paris, there was an attempt to relieve the siege. Notably among them was the Armée de la Loire, and they had some success, particularly against the Bavarians at Coulmiers, but eventually they were pushed back down south. Now, the conditions in Paris are getting particularly unpleasant. There's an awful lot of people, and it is a true siege, encirclement. Supplies are getting low. It's winter, and temperatures are dropping, freezing. So things are getting increasingly desperate. They even start eating the animals in the zoo, like the elephants. And so there's another attempt to raise troops in the provinces. There's a lot of communication done aerially by the balloon corps, pigeons and that, so they could reach the forces in the countryside. And so the idea was to raise an army principally from the remains of the Loire army to basically push towards Belfort, which was one of the border forts on the eastern border, which was successfully pushing back the Prussians, so to relieve them, and then use that as a base to harass the rear of the Prussian troops, which would then hopefully divert sufficient troops from Paris to be able to make a breakout. It's a perfectly logical strategy. And this army was to be led by Charles Denis Bourbaki. Now, the campaign actually starts well with the army, the Eastern Army as it's called, led personally in the fighting by Bourbaki. It's still those days where general officers could fight in the lines. And they pushed back the Prussians at Villers-Excel. However, they do have logistical and supply issues, and they can't afford to follow up the Prussian retreat, which means when they meet later at Lizen, which is almost within cannon shot of Belfort, there's an entrenched pitched battle for 3 days, which ends in a stalemate. So this means the relief of Belfort fails. However, the other objective kind of works, because this obviously reaches the High Command, Prussian High Command in Paris, who dispatch a substantial amount of troops to the east to see what all the fuss is about. So there is a lightening of the encirclement of Paris, unfortunately not sufficient to make any difference. So this, of course, gets back to Bourbaki, and he finds himself in deep trouble because he cannot advance, and he's got an army heading to him from the west. So the army is effectively trapped between the two advancing armies and the Swiss border. And this, as I said before, this is full in winter. The soldiers are very, very poorly equipped, and a lot of them are just simply freezing to death. In despair, on the 26th of February, Bourbaki tries to take his own life and shoots himself in the head, although apparently it just glanced off his skull, so he was only severely concussed, but clearly unable to command, and command then falls to the General Clachon. And to further add to the misery of the troops, on the 28th of January, the armistice is signed between the Prussians and France, so all belligerent actions are to stop, except where the Army of the East is concerned. Now, despite all this, there is one further attempt, a breakout attempt made under the command of General Clachon, which ultimately fails. So there's only one thing left open to him, and that is to seek internment in Switzerland, which was infinitely better than full capitulation. The internment is very quickly organised. On the 1st of February, there is a meeting between General Clachon and General Herzog, the commander-in-chief of the Swiss forces, and it is agreed that the French troops can be interred in Switzerland on condition, of course, of being completely and totally disarmed upon entry into Switzerland. And in total, about 88,000 French troops enter Switzerland. They enter through the Verrières, Sainte-Croix, let me read again, Valorbe and Vallée du Joux. And the troops are scattered throughout 188 townships, villages throughout Switzerland. They were distributed according to the population, the local population density. Apart from Tessin, I probably think it was probably too far away logistically to be worth it. This being done, the Federal Council enters immediately into negotiations with the French government, together with Bismarck of the Prussians, to negotiate the repatriation of the troops. They want to, of course, return them as quickly as possible. The armistice has been signed. There's no reason for the troops to remain in Switzerland longer than necessary. Now, you would think the situation was kind of obvious. The negotiations would have been quick, but Bismarck was using the situation as political leverage to get some particularly juicy concessions out of the Défense Nationale government. And it's not until the 2nd of March 1871 that Germany finally agrees to the release, or the repatriation of the troops. Now, I'm blaming Bismarck for his ruthlessness, but there is one other fly in the ointment, and that was that this conflict was the first one between signatory states of the First Geneva Convention from August 1864. And in that convention, it regulates the obligations, the requirements, and the expectations of prisoners during a conflict, but there was no clause that anticipated internment into a neutral country. So there was also a condition of no one really knew legally how parties were supposed to act in this case. After that conflict, it became then subject to many conferences, and it's not until 1907, I believe, that it was finally part of the articles in the convention. Anyway, where were we? Repatriation. Yes, well, once the green light is given, this happens very, very quickly by railroad or steam packet across Lake Geneva. And there are about 1,000 troops that remain that are too ill to travel, and they slowly trickle back as they are fit to travel once again. In total, about 1,700 men died while interned, because of the typical diseases of the time, typhus, smallpox, pulmonary diseases, that kind of thing. So it's not uncommon in those 188 locations to see little monuments in churchyards to the fallen. And of course, let's not forget that such a service does not come free. What was done was the fees were capped at 12 million francs, and according to the convention signed at the Verrières at the moment of internment, this was fully reimbursed by August 1872. Alright, we're off again. Nice dry socks. So, I just want to close the story of the Bourbaki debacle by sort of bigging up Bourbaki himself. Of course, his name's been associated with the internment ever since, but up until that point, he'd actually been a very successful commanding officer. He is actually of Greek descent, went to the Saint-Cyr Officer Academy, classical officer upbringing, and spent most of his time in Africa, very successful leading colonial troops. He was also in Crimea, Alma, Sebastopol, all the action leading Zouave, so very dashing character. It was only when he came back to Europe that somehow seems to be struck with indecision, and wasn't able to deal with the Prussians. Anyway, he said he survived his suicide attempt, and he doesn't seem to have been substantially blamed for the situation in the fallout. I mean, he was faced with a very tough job with basically no resources, so he was given a military governorship afterwards, and then he was quietly retired in the 1880s when apparently his political views were not in line with those of the general command at the time. And I think he died in 1893, 94, something like that. So, he wasn't all that bad, really. Anyway, off we go. Botanical moment number 2. Here we have some Bärenlauch, some wild garlic, or bear leek, as they call it. And it smells of garlic as you walk past. I've got a sudden craving for a roast lamb. And the Swiss go crazy for this stuff in the spring, and they put it in absolutely every savoury dish you can imagine. Ladies and gentlemen, the larch. The end is in sight, over there. Still 10 or so K to go, and it's sadly not all downhill from here. Carry on. It's a shame I can't ride my horse along this. The captured screams of all those who dared not cross. Must be quite the waterfall when it's full melt season. I wouldn't be surprised if they designed that bridge to make that noise on purpose. So according to my watch, I've got 4.5k to go. Less than expected according to the route map, but that's probably because I took those 2 wrong turns back there. So we're here. Hopefully the camera can pick up the little idyllic setting we've got here. A waterfall in the distance. Got a couple of Milan circling above. Hard living here, but someone's got to do it. Pine cone or artichoke? I'll let you decide. Caution! Exclamation mark. That's the way. Aha. Here be snacks. 50-50 chance of being poisonous. Alright, 3k to go. We started all the way down there this morning and heading into Brienz around this corner. Got just over 2k to go, which means that I've saved myself doing that big hike up into the hills above the city and then down again, or town rather. I think just heading to the station or boat harbour will do the trick. So this is the town of Brienz. Nice rambling wooden buildings, well known for its wood carving, both lifelike and abstract. And there's even a school for violin makers. So you see carvings all over. I think this is one of the schools. A lot of woodwork. Sculptures all over the place. Finishing up along the promenade. Lots of wooden sculptures along here as well. Very touristy area. People in their Sunday best. And me stinking from a march. Try and keep away from the crowds. There's a big cow. And there's a station ahead. Oh God, it's a thing. And oh, I see, it's his leg. Silly me. There we go, GPS has spoken. 25.3k, 32,609 steps, and it's just gone out 6.5 hours. Whew. So all the effort is over. Time for a real beer now. It's not even that warm and not that shaken despite being all that time in my rucksack. So just waiting for the train home, but then I've still got about 20 minutes to walk, so I'll have done the Varusteleka walk thoroughly. Once again, thank you very much for Varusteleka for organising this event and keeping it going even after the pandemic. I think it's great for everyone. It gets us out and seeing what other regular pigs are up to. So I hope you like the vid. Thank you for your support, whatever platform you wish to follow us on, and see you again soon. Bye.